Welcome to another biblically based look into today's news from Christian Voice New Zealand. Now here's Mike Bain.
If you're in any way a biblical eschatologist, you now have permission to get really excited. As if the conversion of the composite sign Jesus gave in Matthew 24 isn't enough, surely the sound of hooves clattering as we see the fulfillment of the 4 horsemen, that'll get you going, I'm sure. For me, one prophecy in Revelation stands out. As a definitive sign, we are soon to see the return of Jesus Christ, and that's found in Revelation chapter 16, as playing an important role in the march of the kings of the East upon the Middle East and to Megiddo, while various governments are puffing out their chest and saber rattling, and the march of the kings of the East looks to be a long way off. Now, Revelation 16 is about the 7 bowls of God's wrath, and while these relate to a time when the Antichrist reigns, I still can't stop getting excited about the latest news of what is happening in the Middle East. Look at Russia, who biblical scholars have agreed is the king of the north. And then look at the map below the Ukraine, which means if the bear is successful in Ukraine, it'll have a straight passage into Israel. Remember, the US doesn't feature in any of the kings in the Bible. A fact, though, the Chinese is ranked as having the biggest military force in the world with over 2 million active personnel. At some stage, the sleeping giant who is awakening each day will want to use its military might. Okay, now I start to talk about something different, which is happening, and this is the world food supply is getting shorter by the day due to the Ukrainian war and unseasonable weather patterns which believers would put down to climate change. And let's not forget the world's supply of oil is finite and fresh water is evaporating. So why are eschatological students getting excited about? Here's the reason. The region once known as the Fertile Crescent is on the verge of a food crisis as the main sources of water disappears. Now, officials struggle to cope as a prophetic scenario appears to materialize. Iraqi officials are reporting that for 3 consecutive years the rainy season has begun later and ended sooner than the historic norm. This has been coupled with less water flowing through its 2 main rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. The region has also been plagued by ongoing conflict. Iraq's President Abdul Latif Rashid told the climate summit in Egypt just recently, desertification now threatens almost 40% of the area of our country, a country that was once the most fertile and productive in the region. Nadia Al-Hassanari, who's the president of Sweden's University of Technology, told Reuters that rainfall in Iraq had declined by 30% over the past 3 decades, with the lowest precipitation coming in the last 2 years. Now, officials accused Turkey of cutting the river's flow upstream, and over the last 2 years to half the level it committed to in a 1987 accord, a claim the Turkish government will deny. Rather than bore you with all the details of the upshot as the Euphrates River is starting to dry up. Just think about the impact less water in the 1,700-mile-long Euphrates will have. It's the main source of drinking water, as well as powering 3 hydroelectric plants that produce electricity for about 3 million people in Syria. 2 dams in the northern Syria face imminent closure, which would leave about 3 million people without any access to electricity. So let's move on to why the Euphrates is important from a biblical perspective. The Euphrates figures predominantly in the Bible, with it being described as the bordering of the Garden of Eden in Genesis 2:14. The name of the 3rd river is the Tigris, the one that flows east of Assyria, and the 4th river is the Euphrates. In Genesis 15:18, it was also named as one of the borders of the land God granted to Abraham's descendants. On that day, God made a covenant with Abraham, saying, "To your offspring I assign this land from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates." The prophet Jeremiah described how the waters of Babylon, the region currently including Syria and Iraq, would dry up as punishment for their idolatrous practices. The devastation being so complete as to render the region, once part of the so-called Fertile Crescent, uninhabitable. Well, as you can see, it does hold some importance. Christian eschatology foresees the river Euphrates drying up in the book of Revelation chapter 16 and plays an important role soon In verse 12, we read, the sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east. Jesus told his disciples to stay on the watch. So the question is this a sign of climate change, or is it a sign that the return of Jesus is imminent? Well, what are your thoughts?
Feel free to leave your comments, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel. For more information about our work and how you can support it is available on our website, christianvoicenewzealand.com.